This week's tip is about the long tail cast on, and I know that this might seem a little basic, but I realize that for my basic correspondence course, since I'm revising it right now, that I do not have a video for the long tail cast on, and I want to make sure that I do have one because sometimes I get students who have not used this yet. So to do a long tail cast on, I have a long tail and then I have my working yarn, and I'm going to start it with a slip knot. Now, you don't need to use a slip knot. There are a lot of knitters that don't use a slip knot because they don't like that little bump right there. That's fine. I do not care. That is immaterial. I'm just starting with a slip knot because I want to. And I make sure that my stitch is nice and tight on my needle, because one of the things that I'm trying to do here is I'm going to try and get consistent size stitches and consistent size line going across the bottom. And to start, I have my long tail on my thumb and I have my working yarn on my index finger, and I make kind of a loop with my thumb. I insert from the bottom towards the top with my needle into the loop, and then I catch the yarn on my index finger, and I then pull this tight. Now, this is an important step because you want your stitches to be a consistent size, and you also want to have a consistent amount of space between the stitches. And if you don't, you're going to have a sloppy looking first row, and you're going to have a loopy cast on edge, and you don't want that. Again, I'm going to go into the loop on my thumb from the bottom. I'm going to catch the yarn on my index finger, and I'm going to pull tight. I'm going to go in and pull tight from the bottom to the top, from the bottom to the top, from the bottom to the top, and catch it, and I'm going to continue doing that. Now, when I use the long tail cast on, I have created with my cast on the first row of stitches, and this is not always the case with cast on edges. Notice that I have a nice smooth line here on the bottom, and I have a bumpy side on the back that looks like purl stitches. Now, which side I want for my public side is completely up to me. Some people like the smooth side, some people like the bumpy side. Doesn't matter, just as long as you're consistent. Now, if I want the smooth side to be the right side, I have just worked row 1 of whatever it is I'm doing. And so when I flip to work the first knitted row, if I want the smooth side to be the right side, the public side, I would work row 2 of my pattern. And generally that is going to be a purl row. And I'm going to work a couple of rows just so you can see this. And this is how I'm going to determine my smoother bumpy side. Now, again, I'm using gigantic needles, so the stitches are going to look pretty icky. Oops. There we go. Now, this is notice that was my cast on row right there. That's my first row of stitches. And we'll work one more row. So, to reiterate, if you want the smooth side of your cast on, I work the first row I actually knit as a wrong side row because the cast on itself produces a row of stitches. Notice that there is a straight line at the bottom, there are stitches coming out of that, and I have this being my right side. I actually have 3 rows there. 1, 2, 3. I've only knit 2 rows. Now, if I like this side to be my right side, I would have, the first row that I had worked would have been my right side row. I would have knit it. Next week, the tip is going to be on a variant of the long tail cast on that produces a purl type edge. And the reason you would use that is if I were knitting ribbing, and I wanted my knit stitches to look like that, and I wanted my purl stitches to look like this. I just use this variant, and I can combine the two. I can work 2, long tail the regular way, and then the next, the variant.